All right, I'd like to call to order the December 9th, 2024 Mountlake Terrace Planning Commission meeting to order. Would you please take the roll?
Chair Batista?
Here.
Vice Chair Betcher?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Landis?
Try to get these coordination of mutes here.
Commissioner Landis?
I'm here.
Commissioner Wu?
Here.
Commissioner Stenson has already been excused from tonight's meeting.
All right, and let the record show, we see Commissioner Morgan. Looks like he unmuted for a second, so if...
I did. I'm here. Sorry, I was having trouble.
Great,
So
thank you.
I am here.
All right, so we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the November 25th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes or corrections of those? I am not hearing or seeing any, so we'll go ahead and declare those accepted as presented. Item number 4, public comment. Let the record show there is no public in person tonight. Do we have anybody who signed up to speak to us for a public comment?
No one has signed up to speak tonight.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, public hearing for the draft 2025 to 2031 Stormwater Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Commissioners. Please just give me a moment to get set up to
Sure.
put this out. Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Planning Commission Chair. My name is Laura Reed. I'm the Stormwater Program Manager for the City of Mountlake Terrace, and I'm here tonight to give an abbreviated presentation prior to the public hearing for the 2024 Stormwater Comp Plan and update and rate study. I'd just like to briefly go through the principles that we use to develop this plan. Those are environmental stewardship, accessibility, equity, efficiency slash effectiveness, and adaptability slash resilience. These are some of the issues that were identified as part of the 20-year outer limit of this long-range plan. Those risks are associated with the growth anticipated in the city through the citywide comprehensive plan. These risks are pollution risk associated with increased population, roads, et cetera. More inspection time required by city personnel for more stormwater flow control and water quality treatment. There is a problem where we have small developments which don't trigger flow control or water quality treatment. These are the one parcel developments that we see frequently for townhome development, and then also dealing with elements of climate change. For the 2024 Stormwater Comp Plan, different than what was done in 2018, is a prioritized list of fish passage barriers, compliance with new ecology stormwater permit requirements for 2024 through 2029, and also ways of dealing with climate change flooding and urban heat island mitigation. The new ecology permit requirements are summarized here. Some of these things are elements that are already incorporated into the stormwater program. Some of these are going to require additional resources to incorporate them for the future. These are tree canopy goals, additional outfall mapping, reduction of PCBs and PFAS, a more attention paid to overburdened communities, which in the city of Mountlake Terrace are those communities within 1/4 mile of Highway 99 or I-5. For those, we need to start doing more mapping of locations, providing more opportunities, and showing how stormwater CI capital improvement projects are cited in such a way to provide benefit for these communities. We also need to do some additional documentation for a street sweeping program and retrofit an existing drainage basin to provide additional water quality treatment. And I also wanted to note that smaller project footprints in the future, or well, I guess now, will start to require water quality treatment. These include city road projects. I'm just going to briefly go through some of the projects that are planned as part of this comprehensive plan. The first one is the 220th and 70th water quality project. This is a project for which we have been, the city has been granted a $657,000 design and engineering development grant to treat 34.2 acres of some of the most heavily traveled road in the city of Mountlake Terrace, along with a lot of commercial and residential properties along the 220th corridor. The blue area shown above is that drainage basin. This would be routed through a water quality vault containing a special media. This would allow the untreated pollutant runoff that comes from these areas and now goes into Hall Creek to be cleaned and then returned to Hall Creek downstream. This is the Hall Creek sheet pile dam. It is a 125-foot sheet pile dam constructed in the 1980s. It was constructed in order to retain sediment from uncontrolled construction development and prevent it from getting into Lake Ballinger. It has served its purpose. It has contained quite a lot of sediment. In fact, so much so that it is causing flooding on 216th Street. And the project would be to remove that sediment and to restore the creek, remove the dam, remove the sediment, and restore the creek to its former natural state. At the same time, we'd be removing a fish passage barrier. This is a regional detention pond located in the northeastern section of the city. It's off 212th Street, past the Safeway when you're headed to Briar. It is completely full. It was built in the 1980s, and it is within a basin that has a special concern for fecal coliform levied by the Department of Ecology. Because the pond is outdated and is also filled up with so much sediment that it doesn't meet current water quality or flow standards, the project would be to retrofit this pond and provide more water quality and flow control benefit in this part of the city. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Main Street project, so I won't go into detail about it, but I will say that for the phase 2 on 56th Street, the stormwater program would replace broken pipes, increase infiltration, have more bioswales and other water quality treatment, and also provide more flow control for the town center area. This is a pipe. This pipe in the picture this is a picture that I took a few weeks ago in one section of the city that shows a corrugated metal pipe that has basically dissolved. This is an example of some of the structural defects that need to be addressed as our infrastructure ages. My intention with this part of the program is to develop a conveyance system where we have 4 to 6 pipe projects that are in the pipeline, getting designed, and then 4 to 6 projects that are getting constructed as a package every year. This is what I think we need to do in order to keep on top of the problems that we have with our stormwater pipes breaking down, and hopefully they're not all as bad as this one. This is a summary of the costs of these capital improvement projects. And this is a graph showing the change in stormwater rates that would be required in order to pay for the capital projects I just described, plus the existing debt service and the operating expenses for the stormwater program. As you can see, we do not need to raise rates until 2027 under this scenario. This was forecast using a 1.5% growth, which is slightly more conservative than the 1.8% growth that was developed during the citywide comprehensive plan. Are there any questions?
Yeah, go.
Yes. So your 1.5% growth, do you have an estimate of how much that would cost the average residential ratepayer per year?
Yes. I mean, the current rates for single-family homes are about $57 every 2 months. So that would increase by 1.5% of that amount starting in the year 2027.
So about 78 cents or something like that.
It's not much, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't actually calculated out, but yeah.
Yeah. I recommend when this goes on to the next place, maybe including that information.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Cool. And then, I think between last week and this week, you've done a very good job of sort of walking through the projects with a focus on stormwater. If there are opportunities for overlapping work, like if the pipes are upgraded along with the roads, at the same time, so we can sort of reduce disruptions and also costs, that I think is also, I know it's beyond the scope of this presentation, but I'm always very interested in ways we can do that.
Yes, I mean, that is kind of our ongoing practice, is if we have to open up the roads, we do a CCTV survey of all the pipes, the stormwater pipes, and determine their status. If they are compromised, then they are replaced as part of the roads project.
All right, fantastic. I think that's all I had.
Great.
Just for my own knowledge, can you discuss a little bit about the debt stack of the capital? I saw that there was maybe something like $700,000 of interest expense relative to a $3 million per year operating budget. So I just want to learn more about kind of the financing of it, and if recent rate hikes have impacted financing rates and future cost expectations.
The debt service is for 3 separate bond efforts, that were made for water, sewer, and stormwater, all 3 utilities. I believe the first one was back in 2008. There was another one in 2010 or 2012, and then one in 2020. So these were those bonds. I don't have specific financial information for you on the debt service rates. I could get that, but if it's something of interest to you, but I would have to talk to the finance director about that.
Okay, yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Just double checking for our online commissioners. Anybody online have any questions for staff?
No questions, but I wanted to say that I like this presentation, how the visual aids and the charts actually helps me understand all the things that we're going through. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Good.
And this is Commissioner Landis. I have a question as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Landis, you're muted if you had a question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, many moons ago, I did my master's degree thesis on stormwater management, like permeable pavement incentives that cities could do. So question one is, how effective is permeable pavement at reducing stormwater management? And then the second part of that would be, is there anything that the city does currently to offer incentives for either new development or residential properties to install permeable pavement to reduce stormwater runoff? Or is that something we've considered doing?
Yes, let me address the first part of that question. I will just like to say, as the inspector, stormwater inspector for the city, as well as the program manager, it's been my observation that unfortunately permeable pavement in the Pacific Northwest is a really big collector of moss. And so you get a lot of moss clogging the pore space, of course, making the pavement less effective. You also get a lot of, sand and dirt and things like that that can create quite a management problem for the homeowners who have the sidewalk or the asphalt, permeable asphalt. So I think it's of limited use because I do see a pretty big lift that's required almost every year for those properties that have permeable asphalt or concrete as part of their stormwater system. As far as incentives, we don't have incentives. We do have adherence to low-impact development practices that are required as part of the, process of getting a permit here in the city. We need to make sure that low-impact development is the preferred and common method, which includes permeable pavement as one of the options for managing on-site stormwater. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. And I was really just generally curious. Was it?
Oh, I think you're muted again.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just generally curious. I wasn't trying to direct all your work in a certain direction. Just was curious what we were up to.
Oh,
But
no,
thank
I
you.
mean, I think it's a good question. I love permeable pavement. I love the idea of permeable pavement. Unfortunately, the reality of permeable pavement is a very slippery sort of surface that I think can be kind of hazardous if people don't really keep on top of it. And that really requires a lot of pressure washing or sweeping or both.
Just as a question to build on his, I do think we have permeable pavement in the Lakeview Trail. Is the point where there stops being moss on the Lakeview Trail like a very visible line? Like there's a very visible line there. Is that like the point where the permeable pavement stops?
Where's the line?
So on the Lakeview Trail, as you cross, as it crosses 236 coming down the lake, and it goes by the golf course,
Yeah.
There's this area that's always covered in moss, and I'm a little nervous to ride on it because it looks slippery. And then there's this line just past the golf course fence where the moss stops, and it's like a very clear line along the pavement.
That's most likely where traditional pavement picks up. Yeah.
Thanks. That helps me visualize the impacts of what permeable pavement can do here.
Yeah, and I do request that the sweeper go down the Lakeview Trail because it is, I mean, it's good to know that it's getting to be a problem. It is something that has to be done kind of regularly, but I'll make a mental note to talk to them about that.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
It's helpful that you mentioned that because we've been talking about permeable pavement on and off for quite a while on the Planning Commission, either with public works projects or in private development. And I had heard complaints, not complaints, but concerns in the past about maintenance, just general maintenance, how the cleaning and the sweeping, it's slightly different and it, requires maybe different types of tools and equipment to maintain. This is the first time I've really heard the issue with the moss though, so it's good to know that that's part of it, because we're always looking for,
Yeah.
new technologies to sort of help with our runoff, but there's clearly a downside, unfortunately, as well. And I mean, you could spray to kill the moss, but then whatever you're spraying is now entering in your system. So that's not exactly something that we're looking for. I had two quick questions. So you mentioned sort of that future site to the west that would treat the water before it gets run off, and how it's going to be a medium that probably has to be maintained and replaced after a certain period of time. It kind of brought up previous discussions that we've had about our bioswales, and you mentioned bioswales, and how those have to actually be maintained and swapped out. It's just like you do it once and it's good. Because those bioswales are in the right of way, is it the city that is going to have to go in and maintain those, or is it the adjacent property owner that is going to maintain those?
I believe if it's part of a city project and it's in the city right away, then it would fall to the city to maintain it.
Okay.
Is that your understanding? Yeah.
Okay. Different jurisdictions are, different. A lot of times, it's like if it's, like a big project and, a new development and a city is requiring the developer to, hey, do this, you are now also, it's like maintaining a planting strip. It's like that adjacent property owner is the one who's supposed to be mowing it and, maintaining it, not letting it be overrun. But since bioswales are a little bit more technical than just grass, I wasn't sure because I would assume since that is something that we would be encouraging, and if we add it more and more, that also there's a maintenance cost to that.
True.
That shouldn't deter us from doing it, but it's that I'm assuming that would have to be baked into the budget and would be part of those increases as we see development increase and as we see this as an option that is employed. That'll also increase, the maintenance costs moving forward. Good to know. The other question I had is, as part of the stormwater plan, it talked about some of the cities' sort of interjurisdictional partnerships with our neighboring cities and for different watersheds. And I'm just curious, are those like a regularly scheduled meetings with those jurisdictions, like once a month or once a quarter? And then sort of a follow-up question to that is, if there's an issue or action item that needs to be addressed, is that just handled administratively, or is that something that could, like maybe, I don't want to say annual, maybe like quarterly or annual, like some sort of update that is transmitted to either council or the planning commission, just to say, oh, FYI, we had our meeting, for this quarter or whatever. These were the issues that are on our radar right now, and that's what we're, sort of dealing with at the moment.
Mm-hmm. We do meet regularly. The Ballinger Forum, which is also the Ballinger-Mackler Forum, it meets quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lion Creek Watershed team meets twice a year because there tends to be less issues that need to be resolved, but we are meeting that way. It's sort of on each jurisdiction who hosts the forum to take notes and provide those notes to the larger group. But if this is something that's of interest, that this could be transferred to people here.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure in some cases, the issue that needs to be resolved or discussed might be outside of our jurisdiction, and obviously we don't have as much control over that. But given that we are either the originating component of the watershed, or we're the biggest part of this, the watershed, especially when it comes to Lake Ballinger, I would assume that while they're downstream, they're going to have issues too, but some stuff might originate with us. And so then it would be interesting to, see, hey, these are some things that we may have to propose or consider, moving forward, because may not directly affect how we treat zoning and development in the future directly, adjacent to the creeks themselves, but they're all part of that watershed. So it's helpful to know. It's like, hey, that if something on watershed specific is on your radar, that, we kind of know that too, and we can kind of take that into consideration when we're throwing up our crazy ideas for, what we want the city to do in the future, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I think the most important development-related issue for Lake Ballinger is phosphorus treatment. So right now, Edmonds, Mountlake Terrace, and Linwood all require phosphorus water quality treatment if water quality treatment is required for a new development. And it took a lot for me to persuade Linwood to do this, but they did go for it. So that makes me happy because this is a direct impact on lake quality. We have algae blooms in the lake. They happen mostly in September, October, November, December, which is sort of when the nutrients turn over in the lake, not when people are mostly swimming in there. But it can be a risk, and it's difficult to figure out whether the algae bloom is a toxic algae bloom or just a regular algae bloom because you can't even get the samples analyzed in the winter. But phosphorus is a nutrient that can provoke these kind of algae blooms, and that's why we're trying to control it.
Is that primarily coming from fertilizers?
It's present in the soil, so it can be in the soil. It could come from fertilizers. Those are the two major impacts.
Okay.
Inputs.
And it's not just coming from those parcels adjacent to the lake itself, but it could be originating from anywhere within the watershed?
Yeah, 66% of the flow into Lake Ballinger comes from Hall Creek. So, yeah, everything upstream of there is contributing.
I mean, it's easy to say, it's like, oh, what's directly adjacent to the lake? It's a golf course. What does the golf course do with their grass? They fertilize their grass, but they're not, you can't just point the finger at them. It's going to be throughout the entire watershed. Okay. Well, that's all I had. Anybody else have any follow-up questions or anything new that came to mind?
No follow-up questions, but I enjoyed that discussion on the permeable pavement because I never really thought about what the effects of that is, because it sounds like it's the right thing to do. And then when I hear you talk about the moss and the slipperiness and the cleanup of it, it actually just makes it clear in my mind on the effects of using that product. So I really enjoyed the discussion. That's all I have. It's a comment, no question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just say, whenever, there is a meeting and whatever jurisdiction is in charge of taking notes, if they remember to do that and give them to you guys, if you're able to, pass them along just to give us a FYI or heads up.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, we also, instead of taking notes, frequently we just record the meeting. So, so it's, and that's posted. So the people who weren't able to attend the meeting directly are able to see what happened and what was discussed.
So are all these meetings are like open to the public?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I was assuming it was just more like administrative meeting, different jurisdiction staff, getting together during business hours.
It's elected officials, it's city staff, but it's always, there's a component of people from the community who come and participate, and, we get inputs on, volunteer monitoring efforts on lake and things like that.
Okay. I got it now. I was thinking it was just more of administrative.
No.
Okay.
It's a public meeting, and it's posted when they're going to happen on the city website, all the city websites, I hope. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So it sounds like that's the end of the presentation?
Yes.
All right. So we are having a public hearing on this. So since staff is done with their presentation, it doesn't sound like we have any follow-up questions. Could I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
I have a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is now open. And looks like, according to my little list here, I'm supposed to ask, was there any written testimony submitted for the public hearing tonight?
No written testimony was submitted for tonight.
All right, so we can go on and skip to the next step, and just double checking, was there anybody signed up to speak tonight for the public hearing?
No one has signed up to speak.
All right, we'll go ahead and skip that one as well. So just one more last follow-up, if there was any additional questions for staff? Not hearing or seeing any. So it looks like we need to close the public hearing at this point.
Motion to close the public hearing?
I have a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. So I think at this point, staff is probably looking for a recommendation.
Yes, please.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a recommendation?
Can I just say motion to make a recommendation to approve the proposed stormwater plan as presented by staff?
Sounds good. I think that's good. I don't think in this case we had any kind of big technical questions or anything like that. So I'll go ahead. I'm getting the head nod from staff, so we'll go ahead and we'll accept that as the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to forward a recommendation to City Council to approve the draft 2025 to 2031 Stormwater Comprehensive Plan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate all your good questions.
Thank you. All right, looks like next on our agenda is the director's report.
All right, first things first, there's some treats and drinks in the back of the room, and since you guys are the lucky people to attend, I expect more than one cookie gets taken home tonight by each of you. Couple of things for this evening. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee has been working on some community conversations. Last week, there was a conversation with members of the mosque here in the community that was quite successful. There will be another community conversation held right here at City Hall on January 29th. And the committee is looking for input on their planning efforts, which include, essentially what their mission is for inclusion in all things that we're trying to accomplish here at the city, and that is from 6 to 8 p.m. on the 29th of January. So heads up on that. I know will be some advertising and other things, but if anybody's interested in that event, please attend. And there's also some literature on the counters, and I think it's being advertised on the website, as the city's website as well. We're also in the process, just FYI, of conducting interviews for our zoning updates and our housing action plan. We did an interview today. We will do another interview tomorrow. We are trying to have a contract in place before the end of the year, and the reason for that is that we're using ARPA funds from COVID to fund part of this endeavor, and so we basically just have to have those funds contracted before the end of this year. So, not that we've been waiting till the last minute, but it is the last minute. But this is for work that we've intended to do with you all coming up. And so we'll pick that firm that we'll be working with to do that work of the Planning Commission coming up for the next several months. So FYI, stay tuned for that, and then we'll go before council just to get the approval of up to $200,000 for that work. And staff will be working on those efforts as well. There will be, as you guys know, a lot of work to do for zoning, and then expanding on our housing action plan, and then all of the legislation that the legislature has been busy enacting in the last couple of years. So stay tuned for more for that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we were undecided last Planning Commission meeting on December 23rd. We don't have anything to bring before you on the 23rd. So just a conversation of what you would like to do for the December 23rd meeting as well. And that's all I have to share, unless anybody has any questions of me, of what's going on or anything else.
I just realized my mic was off. Since there's going to be a new federal administration fairly soon, and we were just talking about, receiving federal funds for certain projects. I know just about every major project that the city is plans for, usually in hopes there's some sort of federal funds or grants. Is there anything in the near term that we've said, hey, we're hoping to move forward on this within the next year or two, and part of that budgeting was like, we are hoping to get certain grants or funds from the feds, and that might not be as doable moving forward for maybe the next 4 years? Is there like a list that we should be aware of? Is like, hey, these are things that we had planned on doing. Odds are we may not be getting federal funding for it, which puts these projects in jeopardy? Or
yes, there has been those conversations for sure. Most notably is Main Street Phase 2, 56th Street. So the city is needing federal grant dollars to complete that project, just due to the cost of that project. And the city will be going for what's called a RAISE grant. Again, has been preparing to submit for the third round of the RAISE grant, hoping to get federal grant funding for Phase 2 of Main Street. And there is conversation that if the city cannot get those funds this go around at the first part of 2025, then the likelihood of getting federal funds probably won't exist beyond that. So there has been conversation to that effect. That's probably the most notable project that the city has been planning on for quite some time.
Is there a way to, I know we're talking about large sums of money here, is there a way to substitute the federal funds from maybe other state and local grants, or possibly if the city has to self-finance it, push out, the repayment period, or,
I mean, that would be a council decision, and I'm, not privy to that level of conversation financially in my position, but I would say that there has been state grant funds for a portion of this project, and there always has been, because it literally started with acquiring right away, and in those efforts and all the design effort, we're at 90 plus design on the project. And you guys were noting like, hey, if you're doing a street project, why don't you upgrade the stormwater stuff? In fact, that does happen. So when you're doing a project like 56, you're looking at stormwater, you're looking at sewer, you're looking at, domestic water, you're looking at the whole thing, because the likelihood is all of it needs upgraded when you're doing that type of major project. So 56 is no exception, right? All of that stuff needs to be upgraded, and utilities as well, right? Just due to the age. So I would say that would typically be the response. But if you've been following the budget process or prospects for the upcoming legislative session and the state budget, it is not looking good as well. So there is a huge budget shortfall in the state anticipated as well. So what that means and what gets funded will be what they will be arguing about in Olympia coming up in this next legislative session. But I would think that would be a reach if I was reading the tea leaves right now to say that we would be able to acquire that level of funding from the state for that project. So at that point, I think, yeah, it's looking for alternatives. The good thing is that we have good people helping us in Olympia, and we have good people helping us at the federal level. And so fingers crossed, you know, we see those grant funds come through to complete that project. That would be awesome, because it's really a necessary project for the city to move forward with what we've been anticipating to see. A lot of things happening in the redevelopment of town center and just needed improvements overall for the city. So stay tuned, but the city's going for it for sure.
Great, thank you.
Who has applied? Who are you interviewing for the next phase of our zoning update?
We had 4 firms that applied. We interviewed Burke and Makers today as a joint team, and we're interviewing Echo Northwest, and I can't remember who the sub-consultants are, but both really good qualified firms that have done quite a bit of work on housing action plans, middle housing, my big concern, which is zoning implementation, design standards, accessory dwelling units, all, you know, all the new legislation and being up on implementation of those things. So we'll have a decision this week on who we're moving forward with.
Great. I know during the comprehensive planning process, I think it was helpful for me to see the development numbers and the practicality of what kind of development might be able to happen where. I know that in my experience, there's oftentimes kind of a gap between like the planning and then the buildings that are possible from the planning.
Sure.
So I'm definitely interested to see more analysis based on that of whoever winds up winning the bid. And then also I think something that also will help us that I also kind of wish we had a bit more of during the town center planning is visualization of what some of these options look like as well.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I think, oh, sorry, Commissioner Thompson, go ahead.
No, all I said is I like that.
Yeah.
That Commissioner Vice Chair's Betcher's comment about adding that information and the visual parts of it.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. So both firms are proposing pro formas for just that. I think we tried to do that with the town center as well and had an economic component and also tried to bring in people from the region to truth some of the work that we're doing. And, you know, it's a bit of guessing in part on a pro forma and trying to guess the economy and a snapshot. But then again, I think it's also very helpful of what we're putting together. Does it appear that it could work? And that, I think that's very important. So we have that. We also, both firms have really strong design review because that's going to be administrative. I think that's really important professionally and for our community as well. And also graphic expertise, which I agree. I think we need, people need to see what we're talking about. And so I think that's really helpful, and not only during the process, but after the process. So I'm hoping that we have enough funds after we adopt some provisions that then we could put some sheets together for people that are interested in doing different things. Hey, you're interested in building an ADU and being able to give them the graphics for that and also a snapshot of how to get things that they need to know for all different types of permits, and that includes those graphics, I think, are really important too. So hopefully we'll have a strong graphic component to not only share that with the community, but as well as you folks and council.
Great. I know design standards are doing a lot of work in some of these, especially for the neighborhood centers.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be really important to look at. And then the missing middle type housing, I know we've had some kind of discussions on it, but I do want to see, I think there's going to be a balance between, you know, how much design standards we can apply and how practical it is to actually build the things. So I think those are the two areas
Absolutely.
I would absolutely like to see our consultants help us with.
Yeah, and we're also bringing in our building official as well, because I think that's important is, you know, we have to put all the codes together. So there's, you know, the building code. And a lot of times we're looking at it from a planning perspective or an architectural perspective, and we're really not bringing in the building side of it and what are the alternatives and what we can do, and also providing for those missing middle housing types. So we've tried to contemplate that is really important. And so part of our team is also our building official. So we're having those conversations as we move forward.
Fantastic. Glad to hear. I know during the comp plan process, we had a workflow that seemed pretty efficient where we get the comments before and we have some time to comment on them before the meeting. I don't know what that looks like in this case, but I would hope that we could also find a relatively efficient workflow. Maybe I don't know if that's something we've established that the consultants would help us with.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to, and yeah, we're going to be going at a pretty good clip, but that's the intent. So, I mean, I think you'll have your hands full with this for the next several months as we go through, and potentially, you know, adding to if we need to, so to get through.
Great. Well, good luck. Look forward to working with them in the coming year.
Yeah, and I think for all of us, you know, just hopefully make sure that we have some good help along the way.
I would just second what Commissioner Bescher said. He kind of stole my thunder a little bit there. Definitely would appreciate, the staggered rollout, work on it as we go along rather than, getting it all at once. It's really hard to digest. And
Sure.
We tend to have a lot of comments, a lot of ideas and input. So it's obviously easier to sort of integrate that as you go along than trying to wait till the last second to do it. And as I'm sure some of you who were around during our last town center update, that was a constant complaint of mine, was the lack of graphics that was being provided by our consultant. So I'm glad that is on your guys' mind right now in terms of a deliverable that's necessary as part of this process. So I'm glad to see that. So, does anybody else have any questions for staff? I'm not hearing or seeing any, so we'll go ahead and move on to item number 7, miscellaneous business by call of planning commissioners. Anybody have any miscellaneous business? Any known absences coming up?
I would like to be excused on the 23rd if we're meeting that day.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are we meeting on the 23rd?
Yeah, that's a good question. So since that's miscellaneous business, doesn't sound like staff has anything for us. I'm sure we could always find work, but I'm not going to drag people in if we don't need to 2 days before Christmas. So if there aren't any objections, I'm open to canceling that meeting. And we just administratively cancel it, or do we need to actually make a formal motion, since I know staff cancels meetings all the time?
I think just making a formal motion might be nice, just to say that you're in agreement to cancel the 23rd.
Would anybody like to make a motion to cancel the planning commission meeting on December 23rd?
Motion to cancel the planning commission meeting on the 23rd of December.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to cancel the December 23rd, 2024 planning commission meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So anybody else have any miscellaneous business? Known absences outside of the 23rd? If not, no worries. Okay, not hearing or seeing anything, so I'll go ahead and declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.